You have 10 #1 hit songs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How did you meet Katy Perry? The one and only Bonnie McKee, everyone. Songwriter, actor, director.
If you don't know the name yet, you definitely know her work. Britney Spears, Katy Perry, Taio Cruz, et al.
I'm right behind Taylor Swift.
When I first got dropped, I wanted to die. He came up and was like, "You're Bonnie McKee, right?" When you're in the room with Max Martin, it's pretty high chances that it's going to be a hit.
Is it true you were in a hip hop group with Macklemore?
Yes, it is. Sitting there like front row at the Grammys, and they're like, "And the winner is." She was like standing in the moonlight naked, watching a wave come, and then she slipped. I like basically saved her, and I had to like jump in after her.
So in a sense, you saved Katy Perry's life. Super excited because we have the one and only Bonnie McKee, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So happy to have you on Behind the Wall. When I started this series, one of the people that I wanted to talk to was you specifically. You have made such an impact on music and continue to make such a huge impact on music today.
Thank you. Oh.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Bonnie McKee, one of the biggest songwriters, biggest artists, now actor, director, philanthropist, done so much. But also, Bonnie, one of the craziest things I've ever heard, I've talked to a lot of people who are pretty successful in this industry, but you have 10 #1 hit songs. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
That is incredible.
Thank you. I can't believe it myself. I got really lucky.
To put that into perspective for everyone, that is the same amount of #1s as Stevie Wonder, 1 less than Taylor Swift, 3 less than Michael Jackson, more than Beyonce, Ariana Grande, Katy Perry, Justin Bieber. How does it feel to go throughout this industry with 10 #1 hits? How is that?
I'm really grateful. I definitely have had some imposter syndrome because I was in the room with the best in the world. I was working with Max Martin and Katy Perry, who was the biggest pop star in the world at the time, and the Dr. Luke's and all. I was working with really talented people. I kind of feel like I was in the right place at the right time.
Amazing. One of those people is also Benny Blanco.
Oh yes, of course. Benny's incredible. I love Benny.
So Bonnie, for anyone who may not know a lot about you, what are some of the songs that they would know you from?
I would say my biggest songs are California Girls was my first #1, Teenage Dream, Last Friday Night, Part of Me, Roar, Dynamite, Taio Cruz, not the BTS one. That one's great too though. Hold It Against Me, Britney Spears.
Amazing.
Those are some of my bigger ones, yeah.
Incredible. Now, I want to put into perspective at the same time because one of the things, as a creator, storyteller myself, one of the things I always love to bring up, people ask me like, "Oh, I posted 3 videos. How come I haven't gone viral yet?" And I always love to say like it took me 150 videos until I went viral.
Yeah.
How many songs would you say it took until you had like your quote unquote first big hit?
Oh my God. Yeah. Hundreds, if not 1,000, probably. Yeah. You have to get your 10,000 hours in,
100%.
So there were years and years where I was doing double sessions in a day, triple sessions in a day, just really honing my craft. And still to this day, every time I write a song, I learn something new.
So going back a little bit in your journey, I was reading online. Is it true you were in a hip hop group with Macklemore?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It was called Elevated Elements. We went to high school across the street from each other in Seattle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was kind of like the Fergie in the group.
And I also saw when you put out American Girl, I saw a video of all these artists singing it, and he was one of them in a bathtub.
Yeah, no, I
it.
was so lucky. The people that we got in that video were incredible. I couldn't believe it. I had like, Tommy Lee and drag as me playing the drums upside down in the air.
That's incredible.
And yeah, Jenny McCarthy, like people that I was not expecting to get in there, but it was great to have Macklemore. And actually that year I was up for Song of the Year for co-writing Roar with Katy, and we were up against each other in that category.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I remember being like, us sitting down and being like, I hope it's one of us. And I just hope it's not Lorde, because Lorde was 15 and we had both been like working for so we were like, I mean, you know, it could be best new pop song, best new artist, whatever. It's like, she deserves to win a Grammy, but please just let it be one of us for this one. And then she got our Grammy. So
Was that for Royals?
for Royals, yeah. It was so funny. It was like my idol, Carole King, was giving away the Grammy. And I was like sitting there, like all the cameras on me, like front row at the Grammys. And they're like, and the winner is Royal. And so for like 2 seconds of my life, I won a Grammy, and Carole King was about to give me a Grammy. And then it went to Lorde. So yeah.
Would you say that Grammys is still an award that a lot of artists and like songwriters want in terms of like being recognized by the industry, or is it still like something that's like pretty prominent today for like consumers too?
Oh, I think it's very important, because that's like the one show a year that everybody watches. It's not just industry people that see that. So you get to see the people behind the scenes. I mean, we've only had a best songwriter category for 2 years.
That
now.
is insane.
That's nuts to me. So songwriters would only win a Grammy if it was Song of the Year, even though like if it won, you know, best pop song or best this or that, then we wouldn't get anything. So
why did they the Grammys have been around for so long. Is there anything that like changed it to be like, okay, we're going to start implementing this now? Because I also noticed that like the Grammys moved the songwriter to the main show and then did producer of the year during like the pre-show now. Yeah,
I mean, it's a long show,
Makes
and
sense.
you know, people want to see the artists that they recognize, and I think the general public doesn't care that much about the people behind the scenes. But you know, it'd be nice for us to get our flowers on TV, you know, because none of that exists without us.
100%. Songwriters are the music industry. All the people who are behind the scenes are the music industry. So I'm glad that they made that change. It's just a little sad that they took so long to do it.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts, because I probably could have won one of those back in the day, but
Definitely.
It's fine. It's fine.
So how do you go from a hip hop group with Macklemore to a record deal?
Well, I actually made a demo in high school. I went to a private school for I didn't even make it a year. I got kicked out of high school in 9th grade. And but my parents has already like agreed to pay for a day in the studio. It was like at the end of the year they would do like an experiential thing for students, where like some students would plant trees, or some would like study by whatever they were interested in. And I wanted to be in the recording studio, so they couldn't get their money back, so they let me do that. But I'd already been kicked out, and I had just been like chilling at home while all my peers were going to high school and being normal. And I came in, I recorded my first original songs, and then I gave that demo to anyone who would listen to it. I thought it was so fancy. I had a CD burner that would burn like 4 CDs at a time. And I was like, I'm like a factory over here. I'm like a record label. And I gave it to someone who babysat for someone who knew someone in LA. It's like really just
It's like networking at its finest.
I mean,
right there.
crazy, just like plucked from obscurity, you know? And they flew me down, and one of my first demos got played on Mornings Eclectic on KCRW.
Wow.
And then there was a big bidding war, and got a record deal and moved down to Los Angeles by myself at 16. And
That's really early
yeah,
in life.
yeah,
What was that like?
lonely. It was lonely. LA can be a really lonely city for anyone who's new, but it was hard because I didn't have any friends my age. Like anyone my age was going to high school and doing their thing. So I like had an apartment and was just like hanging out, getting stoned, writing songs, recording an album that took forever to record, by the way, much longer than it needed to, because the whole thing was written when I was signed. But that's another story for another day.
So I think a lot of people hear the term record deal, and like the people have kind of a definition in their minds as to what it is. What actually is a record deal? Like you say, like if an artist gets a $2 million record deal, what does that actually mean?
Well, when I was a kid, I thought that it meant that I got $2 million.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. You get a certain amount of money, and that's the budget to make the album. So like there's some in there for you to live off of or whatever, but it pays the producers, it pays for the studio, it pays for travel, it pays for marketing. It pays for making the album. And I was spending like, it was just all because I was just that cool. Like, oh, you just want to like give me $2 million. That's not, that wasn't my money. But I mean, I think it's really different what it meant to get a record deal back then and what it means now. I'm not really sure what it means now. I think that nowadays it's kind of just feels like validation. And, you know, if you're lucky, then you get in with a label that actually puts money into marketing, and artist development is just really not a thing anymore. I haven't seen that for years and years.
I think a lot of artists nowadays have to develop themselves in a way.
Absolutely.
Like their
and I
social
mean,
media.
a lot of artists don't get signed until they already have a following.
Yeah.
And they're signing a lot of people off of TikTok. I mean, I've seen this with like great, really talented artists. They'll sign them and be like, oh, like you've got 1 million followers on TikTok, so, you know, you must be something. And then they make them do all the work. Where it's like usually you would get a publicist, like a marketing budget, whatever. And they're like, okay, so you're signed now. Go make a bunch of TikToks, and then we're just going to own the masters, and we just own you. But you're still doing the same amount of work, and we're not actually going to do anything for you.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of thing I've been seeing now, I don't know if it's still in the case, but like a year or 2 years ago, one of the big things they were doing is they were signing just songs that were going viral on TikTok. They weren't even signing the artist.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
It's nuts. I mean, it's kind of the Wild West with the TikTok stuff.
So you work on this album. You're in LA many years ago. It finally comes out. What happens?
Well, when I got signed, I was like industry darling, and I was like the new kid in town. I was a shiny new toy. Everyone was so excited. Oh, this teenage girl who's wise beyond her years, whatever, old soul. And it took like 1.5 years to finish producing the album. I didn't even know what a producer was. I didn't know the difference between a producer and a mixer, and like I knew nothing. And so I recorded the whole thing in New York City, and then they scrapped the whole thing. They weren't happy with the production, and I re-recorded it in LA with Rob Cavallo, who is incredible.
Yeah.
But it just took a really long time. And it was also like recording at the nicest studios with crazy food budgets and like just burning through that money. And then by the time it was ready to go, the buzz had died in the industry. So it's like it took too long and everyone had moved on to the next shiny toy. And B, we had kind of run out of money for marketing. And the other thing was, it was right at the beginning of internet music.
Like MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace and like Yahoo and whatever. But like even still, like my song went #1 on like Yahoo, whatever that even meant back then. And everyone was like, great, what do we do? Like nobody knew what that meant. But like it was connecting with whoever was able to hear it. And then they couldn't really translate that into anything. I got to make a music video, which is cool. That's my favorite part.
The music videos.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. I mean, every time I write a song, I see a music video in my head.
Well, that's
and
awesome.
Like,
very visual.
Yeah. And growing up, that was like, you know, I grew up watching MTV. Like that was like how you got your music for the most part. And I always was like, that's what I want to do. Like I would watch the music videos and see the artists transform into these different characters and all the outfits and the dancing. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so, I mean, that's what I'm still doing to this day. Like, that's really my favorite part is being on set and coming up with the concept. And I direct my own music videos and stuff. And
that's amazing.
It's so much fun. That's the best part for me. It's a lot of work. And there's really no return on investment. Like, it really is just like vanity shit where I'm just like, whatever, this is the art that I like to make. And I like to look back and be like, hey, look what I did. Look at all this cool shit I did. But, there's no money to be made there. So,
well, if it drives you and keeps you making.
Yeah. I mean, like, it just feels satisfying for me as an artist where a lot of times I feel like a song isn't done until I have a video for it or some kind of visual for it. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my favorite part.
Love it. So you put out this album. It doesn't do as well as everyone would hope and you would hope. What happens next?
Well, I felt like there were other singles on that album. I mean, now listening to that first album, it's called Trouble. I'm very embarrassed by it because it was the first songs I ever wrote. And I didn't know anything about songwriting. It was just like whatever came out of me, my raw adolescent self, that's what it was. And they were like, okay, time to do another album. And I was like, what? Like, we just put all of this work into this. It took me 1.5 years to record this thing.
Like, no promotion?
Like, I mean, no, they promoted it and we did a radio campaign. Like, you know, I got a couple syncs, whatever. They worked it. but just nobody knew how to capitalize on it. I was also like, I looked one way and I sounded another. Like the album is very singer-songwritery, and they wanted me to be like Vanessa Carlton or Michelle Branch, like, and I wanted to be Madonna, but I didn't know how to make Madonna music yet. Like I didn't know how to make proper pop music because it was just like very Fiona Apple and Carole King influenced. It sounded like singer-songwriter stuff, but then I was kind of like, you know, a rebellious like little Pop-Tart, and I didn't know how important the image was, pairing it with the music. Like it needs to look how it sounds, you know? So I just was kind of thrown into it, having no idea what I was doing. So yeah, they promoted it. We tried our best, whatever. And then they were like, all right, time for the next one. And I was like, no, please. But I started writing, and I wrote a bunch of songs that I was like, wow, I'm getting better at this. They were definitely better than the first songs on the first album. And the label was just rejecting everything I was turning in.
Wow.
And I was just devastated, and I was frustrated because I couldn't get out of this deal. I was stuck, or I didn't think I could anyway. And so I went from like talking to the CEO on the phone, like he would pick up my calls and being the darling, to nobody answering my calls, nobody emailing me back, and just being like, oh my God, like nobody cares about me anymore. So I just wanted out. So I burned a CD. I know everybody's like, you're so old, whatever. I burned a CD. I went to the CEO's house in the middle of the night. And well, first I went down to Hollywood Boulevard to a smoke shop, and where they sell like swords and like weird, I don't know, D&D kind of stuff. And I bought a dagger that had a tiger on the handle and like a jewel in its eye. And I was like, this seems like it'll send a message. And I went to his house in the middle of the night, and there was a tree right in front of his front door. And I stabbed the CD into the tree. And then I wrote on his car in lipstick, "Platinum Baby," thinking that would get his attention. But then the next morning was his kid's first day of school. Everyone came out and was traumatized because it was red lipstick. Everyone thought I was just like a psychopath, which I kind of was. And needless to say, I got dropped, which is what I wanted ultimately. But the whole thing was pretty, I mean, obviously I had like lost my marbles and had to do something because I couldn't just be held hostage anymore, you know?
So it was your way to get out in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Did the songs that you delivered, did any of those go on to
No,
anything?
because
happen with them?
it was many more years before I had any success or anyone paid any attention to me. I just like starved for a while and was trying to get my bearings, was like drinking a lot and partying a lot and just sort of licking my wounds. I was just so devastated, and I thought that my life was over. I didn't understand at the time that, you know, getting and losing your first record deal is really just a rite of passage.
That's crazy how many artists have been dropped.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I feel like you're just figuring it out. The first record deal is just like a trial run where it's like, how does this work? Okay, that doesn't work. This does work. And then you're kind of out on your own again. And then you have a little more experience. You're a little more seasoned, and you know what to do the next time around.
Yeah, for a lot of artists that try to get record deals, it feels like the record deal is the prize.
Yeah.
But there's just like so much more that artists have to do
that's
after.
just the first step. I mean, I thought that too. When I got my first record deal, I was like, I made it. Like, there's so much that needs to happen.
Definitely.
Including just the stars aligning, you know? You can also just work super hard and do everything that you're supposed to do, and it still won't work out, you know? So there is no guarantee. Getting a record deal is just the first step.
100%. So you're now dropped from the record deal, what you wanted. What happens next in the story?
I fell apart. I lost my mind. I was drinking heavily. And I met a boy towards the end of my record deal. I met a boy who was a producer, and I didn't know he had a publishing deal, or he was just signing a publishing deal with this little tiny publishing company, boutique company called Pulse. And Josh Abraham was running it. He was a producer. He did a bunch of stuff in the 90s and is still working today. And I was like, what's a publishing deal? And like he was writing for like, he was working with like Bruno Mars, and I was like, oh, so you can like be behind the scenes and like, this is a job that you can do. And I was like, well, I can write, I can do it. And I was kind of like annoying kid sister where I was like, let me in there, coach, you know? Mm-hmm. And I started learning about what it meant to write for other people and getting cuts or whatever. So there was this little shithole studio in Hollywood that I was working in that was just like rat infested, like people smoking inside. Like
wow.
the computer would break because there'd be so much ash in the computer.
Yeah.
And I started honing my craft and learning how to write for other people.
I was seeing online that you also were doing vocals for different songs too. Is that right?
Yeah. I was singing demos and making like, $200 a pop or whatever. So I would like drive all over town and sing demos for people. And that was how I survived for a while. And then I borrowed some money from my dad. And then when I got my first hit, I paid him back immediately. I really don't like being in debt to people. And I'm sure he wasn't expecting that because like he had a college fund and stuff. And I didn't even finish high school. So, but I still just didn't feel good about that. So I paid him back as soon as I could.
That's great. You mentioned Bruno Mars, and one of the songs that really stood out that I didn't know this was a thing. Did you sing background or sing on "Love Me" by Justin Bieber? Is that right?
I saw somewhere that I was credited for that, and I'm like, I don't know, did I? Like, it's totally possible that I did. I was credited for that. There have been some random credits that have come up that I'm like, I don't know who put that in there, but like that wasn't me. There's another writer that also has last name McKee that's on a couple of things, so I think that maybe people just get confused. But there was a second where I was credited as writing that Smash Mouth song, "Somebody Once," and I was like, this is the best mistake that's ever happened.
This is the greatest song in the world by far. I love that song.
I was like, I wish I wrote that one.
So, you are learning to write songs. You're starting to look into a publishing deal, everything like that. But before this, you meet a very important person in your story. How did you meet Katy Perry?
I met Katy when I was still signed. I hadn't been dropped yet. I was still signed. It was like at the tail end, things were falling apart. But of course, I didn't want anyone to know that. And she had just been dropped. And like I said, like my name was known within the industry, but nothing had popped off. But I was selling my clothes at a thrift store on Melrose called Wasteland. And we were both selling our clothes, just broke and trying to make a buck. And she approached me and she came up and was like, "You're Bonnie McKee, right?" And I was like, "Oh, wow, yes, a fan." And then she was like, "I love your songwriting. I'm an artist too." And I hadn't met anybody my age. Again, I was like, just out here, just lonely, didn't know anybody in my peer group. And we hit it off right away. And so we kind of shared our ideas with each other and played a couple little shows together. And then I got dropped and she got re-signed. And so she blew up, and that was the closest I had ever been to someone that like became famous, and I was like, wow, like that's insane. And then she ended up bringing me in on the second album. So yeah, I mean, like it was crazy when I first listened to her music on MySpace or whatever. I was like, we have really similar styles. Like we have really similar instincts and references and stuff. She's a California girl, of course.
Yeah. Which will come into play later.
Yeah. And we're a great team.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. And fun fact. So when I talked to Ryan Tedder, he brought up that when they were going to Coachella, they got a call that they were getting dropped the same week as Jonas Brothers and Katy Perry. And I believe that was the third time she was dropped. Mm-hmm. So definitely a rite of passage to get dropped.
Absolutely.
In this industry.
Yeah. I mean, like sometimes when I'm working with young artists and like things are promising, but then things fall apart and they start to panic. And I'm like, don't even worry about it. Don't worry about it. If you get dropped, it doesn't mean anything. It's just like dating. It's just like, okay, well, that's not the person for you. That's not the team for you. You don't want to be signed somewhere where people don't understand your vision or get you, or you don't work well together. Like it's better for you to go somewhere else or be on your own. These days you really don't need a record deal to make something happen.
Especially with the internet.
Absolutely.
So you become friends with Katy. Mm-hmm. I hear about these famous barbecues.
Oh yeah.
And I definitely want to get into that because I believe it's one of the inspirations for one of the songs that you two write later. But tell me about getting the call and the first time being tasked, like being brought in on her second album, which became one of the biggest albums.
Mm-hmm. Well, Katy and I hadn't talked for a while. We had kind of had a falling out, to be honest, because that's just how it is when you're a girl in your early 20s and you're in the same industry. And I think that still to this day, like girls feel like there's only room for one. And so there's a lot of kind of cattiness that goes on, or competitiveness. And so she didn't want me there, and I didn't really want to be there. But Luke had signed me, and he was like, I really think you're right for this. You should come in and write on it. And she was like, isn't there anyone else we can call? And
wow.
I was like, I don't want to do that. But I mean, I really didn't have a choice. I was like, well, I mean, I got nothing else going on. Like, I should probably see what happens. So, and my publishers, of course, encouraged me. So I went in, and they had started Part of Me, but she was stuck. And so I came in, it was like late night, and she was like, had been working on it all day. And she was like, all right, well, let's see what you can do. I had to take a cab, because it was before Ubers. I had to take a cab to get there because I didn't have a car. And like my cell phone was always getting turned off and stuff. And I showed up, and she was like, all right, well, let's see what you can do. So I stayed overnight at Conway. I spent the night at the studio. I worked all night, and I sat down and was working on Part of Me and thinking about like what it's like to be Katy in that time and place. And one of the things that I had had observed in her rising to fame was just a lot of fake people around her, and how exhausting that must be, and not knowing who your real friends are and stuff. So one of the lines, I just want to throw my phone away, find out who's really there for me, was really inspired by, thinking about how she felt about being that person that everybody, wants something from. And then she came in the next day, and she sat down and she listened, and she kind of looked at me and was like, okay, you're getting a car. I was like, oh my God. And then, we were just thick as thieves. We were just fine. Our friendship mended and everything was good. So I think it was just like getting past that stupid competitive bullshit that happens with girls in the industry. And then we were such a great pair. We went on to write so much great stuff together.
Yes. Speaking of all the great things that you've written together, I love so many of those songs, and I would love to ask about a lot of them. If you're open to talking about it. So the first song you get brought in, just curious about this. Are you working in the studio alone, or is there somebody with you as you're like rewriting and adding stuff to Part of Me?
That night, it was me and an engineer, Clint, who's now an incredible mixer and like mixes for Doja Cat and all this stuff.
Wow.
And he was the main engineer there at Conway, and they took such good care of me. I would come in, and they would have the pens that I like, because I like to write in notebooks. And
Do you still write notebooks?
I always write in notebooks.
Love it.
Yeah. And it was just me and him overnight. And then, I mean, like I said, they had already started it. They had the hook, they had the concept and everything. And I was kind of just like helping fill in the blanks for the verses and the stuff that she had gotten stuck on. And then we sat down together, and we wrote the bridge together, and we worked it all out. And that was the first time that we had ever collaborated. And it was so easy, because we both, like, lyrics are so important to us, and like especially visual lyrics. And so she's just really fun because she's full of great ideas, and that was one of the best writing experiences I had thus far in my career at that point. So I was glad to have a partner. And it made sense, because when I first met her at that thrift store, and listened to her stuff, I was like, yeah, I think we are on the same page.
Do you remember the order of the songs and how you guys wrote them? Because if not, I'm just going to start asking about them.
Let's see. Yeah, I think that the next one we did was Teenage Dream.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that was it. That was the next one we worked on.
That is one of my favorite songs.
Thank you.
Tell me about writing that one. What was that like?
Oh, it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. The melody was, for the most part, done. And usually Katy would like to start something without me, and then kind of like call me in if she needed me, because she's a fantastic songwriter in her own right. Like she doesn't always need me, but I think she thought that I could help elevate some of the stuff. So she brought me in. The track, Benny Blanco made the track. It was incredible. Like, we knew there was something magical there. Max had put together the melody with Katy, and it was like a really interesting rhythm, like the rhythm of the chorus on Teenage Dream. It's kind of like an unusual timing. And so it was hard to fit words on that because, like, I don't know, for me, something that a lot of beginner songwriters miss with lyrics is putting the right emphasis on the right syllable. Because I like for my songs and my lyrics to sing naturally the way that you would say it in a sentence. So like if something is hitting an important note where you wouldn't go up when you say it in a sentence, then, or if it's like the big note is like the word to or and, it's like you want the big note to be the word that matters, you know? So that was like kind of a tricky word puzzle to put together. And we wrote, I mean, back to front, we wrote like 4 or 5 different versions of that lyric. And we knew it was supposed to be kind of like young and nostalgic.
What were some examples
I remember one version that I have in a notebook somewhere around here was like, you make me feel like I'm born again, all brand new, come on, Peter Pan. And it was like a little too young, you know, and it was like, this is just kind of feeling like elementary school, and we want to kind of get to high school. We want it to be a little sexier, you know? And then we were like, okay, that's not working. So then we did one that was like, try me on. And it was like, kind of like dress you up in my love. And because, you know, she's a real fashionista. And also like we had met in the thrift store or whatever. We both love fashion. And so it was like all metaphors of like clothing and, you know, fit like a glove and whatever. I'll look good on you, that kind of stuff. And then we went back to the nostalgic thing. And I remember we brought something into Benny and he was like, it's not cool enough. It's just not cool. Like it's fine, but it's not cool enough. It's not sexy enough. And I was like, okay. So we wrote kind of like a watered down version of it. And Max was just like over it. And he was like, look, this is fine. This is it. We got other songs to write. Move on. And so they all went up to Santa Barbara to work on the rest of the album. I wasn't invited yet. So I was just like hanging back. And I had like a week to just sit around and think about it. And I was like, this is my 8 Mile moment. This is when I'm like, palms are sweaty, you know? I'm just like, this is my moment. Like I have to nail this because I know that there's magic here.
Yeah.
And so I just started thinking about like, you know, what it was like having my first love, having my first boyfriend in high school, and like the point where you start getting comfortable with someone. And because, you know, you're so nervous the whole time when you first start dating, it's like everything's embarrassing and everything's scary. And then when you kind of find someone that likes you the way you like them, then it's like, you know, you think I'm pretty without any makeup on is like the first thing that I was like, that feels genuine, that feels relatable. And then I was like, how do I make it sexy? And I was thinking about like, you know, the posters I would have up on my wall or the boys have up on their wall when they're teenagers, like who are the idols that we look up to? I used to think about like Leonardo DiCaprio and like imagining like having my first kiss with him or whatever, you know? And I was thinking about like, I mean, if I'm being graphic, like wet dreams, and like that was kind of where the dream part came from. But I was like, the word teenager says so much. It's so evocative, but it was too many syllables.
It gives you like an image right away.
Yeah. Like it means so much. The word teenager is like a whole plethora of words and things and feelings. And so I just shortened teenager to teenage and then stuck the dream at the end and was like, voila. And so I drove up to Santa Barbara. We were staying at a fancy hotel and my phone had been turned off. I had to borrow my boyfriend's car to get there. And I was like wandering around like this fancy hotel. Like I can't exactly go up to the front desk and be like, can you tell me where Katy Perry is? You know what I mean? And I like bumped into Katy and she was like, oh yeah, like we're just going to the studio. And I went in and I was like, okay, I know you told me not to work on this anymore, but I think that maybe I might have found something. And Max was like, ugh, fine. And so I was saying it to him and then he was like, well, why didn't you say so? I was like, well, you didn't want to hear it. You didn't want to hear it. So I don't know. We put it together and I remember when she cut the vocal, it was like, Max turned to me and said, I wish I could bottle this feeling. And I was like, what feeling is it? And he was like, when you know you wrote a hit. And I was like, is that what this is? Is that what this feels like? Oh my God, is that this feeling? So I'll never forget that. That was like a really magical moment.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have that feeling again when you write songs? Like when you, in that sense?
Yeah. I write songs and I get that feeling where I'm like, this feels like a hit. But again, if the stars don't align, then, I have no control over that.
Especially in today's age. It's
Yeah.
very
You really
different.
just never know. You never know. It's a crapshoot. It's a gamble. But when you're in the room with Max Martin and Katy Perry, it's pretty high chances that it's going to be a hit. So I believed him.
100%. In terms of the next song, is that California Girls or Last Friday Night? Or is there...
I think that Last Friday Night came next. And that was, the whole lyric was really based on reality, because Katy and I we were always partying together. We were going out in LA. We both love to host parties and theme parties, and we get a little wild. And so we really were just like pulling imagery from our own parties that we would throw. A lot of barbecues, a lot of day drinking, and a lot of debauchery. And actually, while we were in Santa Barbara, we all went out to celebrate and came back to the hotel, brought a bunch of like strangers back, and Katy wanted to go skinny dipping. And so we all ran out on the beach naked. And then, but we were a little tipsy, and she was like standing in the moonlight naked on some slippery rocks. And I remember like watching a wave come, and then she slipped and like hit her head. And I was like, nobody there knew her. Like, this is just a bunch of like drunk randos that we brought back from the bar. And so I like basically saved her and I had to like jump in after her and pull her out. And she was like bleeding all over her face. It was insane. And I tucked her in, put her to bed. And the next day we wrote Last Friday Night.
So in a sense, you saved Katy Perry's life.
Kind of, a little bit. I mean, I'm sure she would have been fine, but it was scary. I was really scared. I was like, oh my God, I'm like watching a huge pop star die right now.
Wow.
But she was fine.
I'm glad she's okay. Were there other pieces for Last Friday Night, or like other like alternative things for that?
Oh, I mean, it's a really wordy song. Like the melody has a lot of words. So there were lots of stupid options that we came up with. I don't remember right off the top of my head. I made a TikTok about it.
By the way, love your TikToks.
Oh, thank you very much.
Huge fan of them.
Thank you.
So tell me about California Girls.
California Girls was the last one that we wrote. Well, I mean, Wide Awake came for the deluxe, but like for the official album that came out, California Girls was the last one, because originally Teenage Dream was supposed to be the first single. But I think that they felt like they needed something more obvious.
Okay.
Because Teenage Dream is not as big as California Girls was. And I don't think that it would have done as well if California Girls hadn't set it up first. So we needed like a hit you over the head, obvious banger. And so California Girls was the last one we wrote, and that became the first single.
And California Girls features Snoop Dogg at the time. I was looking into this because I thought this was so cool. At the time, like Alicia Keys and Jay-Z just had Empire State of Mind, I believe. And I was looking into like interviews you did, Katy did. Something that was big was like, we need a song for California.
Yeah. I mean, Katy, like I said, is a California girl. And she came in, it was her idea. She came in and was like, I really think that we should do an answer to Empire State of Mind, right? And so I was like, okay, great, let's do it. And so she came in with California Girls concept ready to go. And the melody and the track felt just like party time. It was perfect. And then, we were putting together all the lyrics, and I was trying to think of like, because it was kind of like East Coast versus West Coast or whatever. And I was like, okay, so what are some West Coast kind of things, like gin and juice? Like, I wanted to make sure we kind of gave shout outs to like, the culture that we have here in Los Angeles and California as a whole. And it just made sense to get Snoop on it. That was so epic. And I got to meet him on the music video shoot, and I was like so starstruck. And he offered me a blunt, and I was like, I'm already so nervous right now. Like, there's no way. Like, if I smoke weed right now, I'm going to completely fall apart and just have to go home. So I was like, I said no. Like, Snoop offered me weed and I said no.
Oh my gosh. For Last Friday Night, I remember a big thing for that music video was Rebecca Black being in it. Was that like an idea that y'all like kind of came up together? Like, how did the ideas, because a big part for you, it feels like, is having like a music video connected to the song. Are you involved in that process as well back then?
No, not for Katy. Katy comes up with all of her music video ideas. Like it's her vision, it's her face, it's her, that's her story to tell. And I love her music videos. I think they're incredible. But I will say, like, for me personally, I did feel kind of unfulfilled being like, oh, I don't get to have any say in this. Like, I had such a heavy hand in these. And so that was like part of what I didn't like about being behind the scenes, about being a songwriter, was that I had no say in what the visuals were going to be. I mean, luckily, Katy has great taste and she makes incredible videos, so it was all good and I was happy with it. But like, I love being involved in that side of things, and I never got to have any part in that. So,
got it. So, finishing off the songs, tell me about. Let's go back to Wide Awake.
Yeah, so Wide Awake was for the deluxe, and it was kind of like the sister song to Teenage Dream, which a lot of people don't realize, because, Teenage Dream, we wrote when she was...
That kind of makes a lot of sense. Teenage Dream, Wide Awake.
Exactly, yeah. Teenage Dream was written when she was newly in love, she was engaged, everything was going great, and then... By the time we got to Wide Awake, because, the Teenage Dream campaign was so long and just like blew up, things had gone downhill, and she wanted to write about that. And so we wanted to have something that would kind of, I think it was more of an accident, really. It was kind of like, the feeling of discovering the person that you fell in love with isn't who you thought they were, and what a revelation that is, and kind of waking up. So it is waking up from the Teenage Dream and falling from cloud 9. On the artwork of Teenage Dream, she's laying on a pink cloud, and this is kind of falling from that.
There's a song that you both wrote that probably should have gone number 1, and that's Katy Perry's Birthday.
Yeah. I am so mad that one didn't go as far as it should have. Like, I hear it occasionally and I'm like, it's a banger.
It is a banger.
I always wanted to write a birthday song because I was like, we need a new birthday song. And like, it's just like a holiday song, it's something that can be used forever and ever. And so I will occasionally hear it, but I really thought that one would go, and it didn't go as far as I thought it would. But it's a banger. I don't know.
And it's interesting because that song came out in 2013. Mm-hmm. I recently talked to Mike Posner. Mm-hmm. He has a song, Sugar, produced, both of them produced by Circuit. If you listen to them back to back, they sound pretty similar.
Yeah. I know as a songwriter, when you're a working creative, it's like, it's easy to repeat yourself.
Yeah.
I feel like every song I've ever written has the word paradise in it. Like, whatever. That's just like my go-to. It sings so well and it rhymes with so many things. And so, yeah, I've definitely heard that with producers and stuff too. It's just kind of like, you have a style and that's what you're known for and that's what people like. So Definitely. It's like, if it ain't broke.
But something I love at the same time is that you're also always trying to evolve. Mm-hmm. So you're not just trying to not fix it, but you're trying to make it even better.
Yeah. And some artists like that and some don't.
For sure.
There's certain artists that I've worked with that are very just like on the fly, like, in the moment, like this is what I'm feeling inspired by. And I'm very meticulous and I like to sit down and dig and like no stone unturned. And like, I'll write a song and be like, this is great. I'm just going to completely rewrite it and see if I can beat it. And if I don't, then great. But oftentimes I will. So it's like become a little bit of an OCD thing where I'm just like, I'm probably really overthinking this, but I don't know. I just always think back to Teenage Dream and how hard we worked on that. And like what Katy and I came up with was just so much better than what we started with.
Yeah, it seems like a very important song to you.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. I'm really proud of that one.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all this success with Katy. Mm-hmm. One of the most viral songs ever before the TikTok era was one that you wrote, Taio Cruz, Dynamite.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, wild. Dynamite. Yeah, so at the time that I was working with Katy, I was also simultaneously working on the Femme Fatale album for Britney Spears, and then whatever Max and Luke would bring in, like I was, we were the dream team or whatever. And so they brought in Dynamite, and originally it was just the hook, like the melody was done on the hook. And so they wanted me to put some words to it. And at the time I was like kind of trying to slow down my partying. I was thinking about maybe quitting drinking and getting sober, and it's not easy. And so I was kind of having a moment that day, and I was like, people are always like, why do you just throw your hands up in the air sometimes? What's the sometimes about? And I'm like, well, it's not actually a party song for me. Like, it came from like, sometimes you just got to throw your hands up in the air and just like let go and let the universe take over, you know? So it's actually a song about surrender. The hook is anyway. And then Taio came in and he wrote the verses, and he brought in like the party time element, which it absolutely needed.
Rock this club.
Well, I did that part too, because I was like, ugh, I gotta like reel it in a little bit. But you know, I'm wearing all my favorite brands.
Yeah.
And it really needed that, because it needed some levity, you know? And I mean, I feel like that the verses are so iconic in that song too.
Definitely.
And so it's just funny to see people, you know, throwing their hands up in the air at the football game or whatever it is. Like, I feel like it gets played in like big celebratory moments, and
definitely.
like people don't really know where it came from.
Well, that's cool that the message comes from more of a serious piece.
Yeah. And I feel like some part of it, I mean, the melody is really very emotional. Like when you just heard the melody, like without the lyric on
just
it,
on piano or something.
yeah,
like that even.
it's pretty like, it's kind of bittersweet. It's kind
Yeah.
of like reflective feeling, you know? So I kind of like to think that some people feel that when they hear the song, like there is some kind of like longing or like seeking something bigger. I don't know.
So what's crazy to me is how many things you were working on at once. So you were working on Katy. You were working on any song that they were bringing in, and then you just said you were working on Britney Spears at the same time too.
Yeah.
One of the huge songs from that was "Hold It Against Me."
Yeah, Hold It Against Me. Yeah.
How'd that one happen?
Actually, funny story, because I was camped out at Conway, which is my favorite studio in Los Angeles. It's like a tropical paradise, and they serve you cookies, and it's amazing, and coconuts with a straw in it. It's the best. Anyway, and Katy was there working in the other room. I was working on the lyric for Hold It Against Me. I hadn't put it together yet. She had just come in from some press run, and she was like wearing some incredible little tight dress. And she walked in looking fantastic. And I was like, damn, Katy, if I told you you had a nice body, would you hold it against me? And then I was like, hold on a second. Hold that thought. I gotta go. And I went and wrote the lyrics. So it was actually inspired by Katy's hot body. So
Isn't that fun? So you're working on all this stuff at the same time. You're working on any song they bring in. You're working on Katy Perry. You're working on Britney Spears. But you're also, at this time, aren't you working on your own music too?
yeah, I was just like in the process while we were doing Teenage Dream stuff. I was kind of collecting some songs quietly for myself. And by the time we went in to work on Prism, which is when we wrote Roar, I was full blown like working on my own album simultaneously. So while the day that we were writing Roar, I came in early. We were again up in Santa Barbara working, and I came in early and was like mixing via video call or whatever, mixing American Girl, and then later in the day working on Roar, and then sending notes about the music video for Sleepwalker, and it's a lot.
Definitely.
Being an artist is a full-time job. Being a songwriter is a full-time job. So it's a lot of brain power and hours.
I can't believe that you wrote Roar and American Girl at the same time.
Yeah, that happened.
I want to come back to Roar. Tell me about the process of writing American Girl, because I love that song. I know so many people out there love that song.
Thank you. Do you want to hear about Roar or American Girl?
American Girl.
American Girl. Well, I have always been really influenced by songs from the 80s. Like, I love the 80s. I feel like that was really a golden era of pop. And I loved, which song was I referencing for that? It was kind of like I love Jesse's Girl and like
That's
that
such a
kind of
good
stuff.
song.
Yeah, it's so good. So I was kind of pulling from that. And it really was inspired by my experiences. Like, the first line is, I fell in love in a 7-Eleven parking lot. And when I was a teenager, we used to hang out at the 7-Eleven. That was like where everybody would go. And I would kind of hung out with like a group of skater boys or whatever. And we would sit around and like, try to get people to buy us beer or whatever, and spike our Slurpees. And That's a true story. That's where that came from. And I wanted to write a song it's satirical, which I think kind of goes over people's heads a lot, which I think a lot of my own music is that way, where it's like I'm saying one thing and people are hearing another, and that's fine. I want it to be a song that everyone can enjoy. And then if you dig a little deeper, then you know that there's more of a message there. But it's just, I was raised by a television. Every day is a competition. Put the key into my ignition. It's like, the experience of what it's like to be a girl in America. So it's not just like America, fuck yeah, it's like, it's a little more nuanced than that.
Yeah. More specific to you and other people as well. That's great.
Thanks.
So you're writing other songs for your own project during this time. What happens to that project?
Well, I made a whole album. I signed with Epic and I made a whole album that I was very proud of. I mean, obviously I was like at the top of my songwriting game. I was a writing machine at the time and just like turning out hits and working with the best and learning so much. And I made this whole album. I recorded it. We put out American Girl. It did pretty well. And I was like, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make it, like it's my turn now.
Yeah.
And then I had this song called Slay. And that was supposed to be the second single. And the label had agreed to it. I went on tour and I was promoting it. I was doing radio stuff. Actually, first off, I was supposed to open for the Jonas Brothers.
Wow.
So I got this incredible opportunity to open for the Jonas Brothers on tour. I did all this press. I rehearsed for months. Literally the day before we were leaving for tour, all of our gear had been shipped to Phoenix where the tour was starting.
That's where I'm from.
Yes. We were almost going to come and see you in Phoenix. The day before the tour started, the Jonas Brothers broke up.
No.
Yeah. And so, I was shell-shocked. I was just like, all of my gear is already in Phoenix. Like, our plane tickets were ready to go. We were like playing some like Yahoo Live thing or whatever. And we got the news right before we recorded that. And so like when I watch those videos, it's online somewhere, the Yahoo thing. I'm like singing all these songs and I'm just like so pissed. I'm so pissed. And I mean, look, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, I think they wanted to do their solo careers. I don't know if there was like infighting. I have no idea what the tea was, but Jonas Brothers broke up, but I had a whole tour ready to go. So then I was like, I got to like capitalize on this moment because I had learned the hard way that like if you wait too long, you lose the buzz, whatever. So I booked a tour opening for Carmen, who were also signed to Epic, who is now Queen Herbie on TikTok. And she's incredible. Love her so much. We went on an American tour. It was amazing. I had an all girl, for American Girl. And I had an all girl band. Every night was like a slumber party. I loved these songs. I was so excited. And then halfway through the tour, the label called and was like, yeah, actually, we don't think that Slay is a hit. So we're not going to pay for this anymore.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And you know why? It's so funny. Like, can I just start by saying I love Lorde. I love Lorde. Like, don't get me wrong, big fan, listen to all the albums, incredible artist. But I remember like the label calling and being like, look, like this pop stuff just like isn't happening anymore. Like Lorde is happening. Like you need to do something more like Royals. And I was like, oh, you mean like the song that stole my Grammy? Okay. And like the stuff that I was doing was like maximalist, sparkly pop music. And they were like, yeah, no, things are changing. So like, we're not going to put money behind that anymore. And I was like, okay, but I already made this whole album and it's great. And like, by the way, there is still a life for these songs. But so I was like, all right, fuck this. So I called my manager and was like, I want out. I'm not doing this again. I've already had a terrible record deal. I don't want to be held hostage. If they don't get the vision, then this is not the place for me. So luckily he got me out of the deal. And I went and made an EP of 4 songs called Bombastic because I didn't own the masters for that American Girl album. So there's nothing I could do. So I was devastated because I love these songs. They were some of the best that I'd ever written. I finally got a chance to do my own thing and I had to just throw them in the garbage.
Wow.
So I went and made the Bombastic EP and it was my first independent release and that was super liberating for me. But I was still really heartbroken about those songs. So fast forward, I just in the past few years on TikTok, I would be, talking about making new music and I kept seeing all these comments that were like, we want Slay. We want Forever 21. We want Hot City. Like all these songs that I had played on the tour. And I was like, how do they even know these songs? You know, like only if it wasn't a huge tour, but there's just like this lore about this unreleased album. And then I found a forum online that's 500 pages long.
Oh my gosh.
That's all these kids talking about this unreleased album. And they're trading demos and they're talking about the different writers and who they think the songs are about and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like these kids really care. And I still care about this.
Definitely.
Like 10 years later, I still was just like so heartbroken that they never saw the light of day. So I was like, you know what? If the fans want it, I'm going to give it to them. So I was like, what do you want to hear? You guys tell me what you want on this album and I will give you those songs. So it is curated by the fans for the fans.
Amazing.
And I'm just so grateful that they've been with me all this time and that they still care because I still care about them. And I wouldn't have done it if it weren't for seeing all of that. Like, because I was just like, whatever, it's dated, it's old. But I feel like there's a resurgence of interest in this kind of nostalgic 2010s.
Oh, for sure.
Sparkly maximalist pop stuff. So I was like, maybe the stars are finally aligning for this. And I really feel like I've done it with the fans. Like I talk to them, I'm like, yes, like I do a little live stream and I'm just like, we did it, you guys. Like you helped me get here. Thank you.
After 10 years.
Yes.
It's finally coming out. Mm-hmm. That's big. That's a great story too.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, I'm really proud of it. And I think it also, I try to write what I call evergreen songs, which are songs that are going to always be good no matter what. And like I updated. Oh yeah. So here's the other thing. The reason I didn't put it out was because I didn't own the masters, right?
Okay.
So I re-recorded them. I just pulled a Taylor Swift and I just re-recorded all the songs and now they're mine. So now I can do whatever I want with them. And that has also been super liberating. So like slay.
Slay, that's right. So something that's kind of disappointing me now is I've been hearing about a lot of record labels putting something in contracts that artists can't re-record their songs.
Yeah, lucky for me, there was no re-record clause. But I don't know. I mean, I understand why they do it. Like if they're going to pay for blah, 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 then like if you leave a label, then anyone could do that. Like you could just use the marketing and then be like, cool, I'm going to do my own version. I get it. But these were all unreleased. They never saw the light of day. So it's like, I don't know.
And now they are.
And now
after
they are.
10 years. Incredible. I'm glad we jumped there. Also, one of the biggest songs ever that you wrote is Roar. Mm-hmm. Tell me about how you made that song.
Roar is, I mean, that one really had legs. Katy and I are two powerful females in the music industry, and we still have had to deal with sexism and people getting in our way and telling us we can't be who we want to be. And so, I mean, that was a real easy one to come up with, you know. There's a lot of bullshit that happens behind the scenes. And you know, I think that it ended up kind of translating to anyone who's struggling with anything. I've had people tell me that Roar helped them get through their battle with cancer, helped them through their divorce. You know, it's really just about perseverance. And I feel like that's kind of a theme throughout my own music because I have been struggling for a long time to like earn my place in the spotlight or whatever. Perseverance is a big theme in my music. And, you know, we pulled some inspiration from Eye of the Tiger, which is another like you can do it song. And and I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, which is like a classic feminist anthem from the 60s. So you know, I like to pull references from older songs. Like I said, I feel like there's just a whole world out there. Because I feel like when you pull references from modern stuff, you just sound like everybody else. So if you're a songwriter and you feel like you want some inspiration, like try listening to some shit from like 30, 40 years ago. And you never know what you might find.
Inspiration. So one of the things I loved about that song is, I think it was 2014, where we got to see the Super Bowl, where Katy Perry is on a massive lion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's also like dancing sharks for California Girls. How was that to see the songs that you both wrote together being performed on such a massive stage?
I mean, that was definitely a bucket list moment. I remember it was weird because I happened to go to, I had just gone through a breakup. And so like my group of friends was kind of weird at the time. And so I went to a Super Bowl party where I didn't really know anybody. And I remember like sitting there like with one friend and being like, can you believe this is happening? And then everyone's just like singing along. And I'm like, I co-wrote
that one.
song and that one too. And I don't know, but it was just surreal. And I love also, you know, the Super Bowl just happened recently and seeing like the top 10 like great Super Bowl performances. And I love seeing Katy on that list.
Definitely.
Makes me really proud.
And the dancing sharks are now a meme on TikTok.
Yeah.
Which is so awesome to see. That one moment continued on. I was watching one of the videos that you made where you were singing a lot of the songs that you've written in the past. It was like a medley.
Yeah.
Do you know what is the most like replayed moment of that video? Do you know which song it is?
No.
It's Kesha Come On.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm shook.
How is it like to make that song with Kesha?
It's so funny, you know, like, because I perform the medley live for, you know, like at Hotel Cafe for Jesse and Friends, who's incredible, by the way. If you ever get a chance to go to those showcases, they're really cool.
Awesome.
But I had thought about taking that song out of it because I was like, I don't know, like this one wasn't as big and like people's attention span is short. And so I want to make sure that, you know, it's just packed full of the hits, you know, but I really love that song and I love working with Kesha. Kesha's also incredibly talented and has written songs for other people too. She did Dance Until the World Ends and like all kinds of stuff. She's an incredible artist and songwriter in her own right and singer too. Which I feel like people really missed when she first came out, where I was like, no, this bitch can sing. She can wail. But I mean, she was really brave to come out with the white girl rapping stuff. She was kind of like the first girl to be doing that. And everybody gave her so much hate, but she's incredible. And she's really like her own artist and did her own thing. So writing that one was really fun. And that was the chorus was done when I came in. So I was just kind of like ping ponging with her on the verses and stuff. And it was really just like finding the fun imagery. I don't know. Tigers and lions and shit are something that always kind of ends up in my lyrics too. Like I love big cats and I wear a lot of leopard. And so feeling like a saber-toothed tiger is something that I really loved doing that one.
Definitely. I also saw that song starting to come back. I think it was like a year or two ago on TikTok, and I saw like a dance for it too.
Oh, no way.
People were doing like feeling like I'm a schooler. That part. I think it was that part. I thought, and so then I remember seeing it, being like, "Wait, I know that song because I heard you singing it." And then I saw it because on YouTube you can go to the most replayed part and see the retention.
I didn't even know that. Oh my god, that's so funny.
And by far, it's just this huge mountain right there. People just replaying that part.
I mean, is it just because like I'm embarrassing when I rap? Is that why?
I think people connected with it. You also wrote a ton of songs with like 5 Seconds of Summer, Charlie Puth, Avril Lavigne. Any of those songs really stand out in the stories of those?
You know, I feel like Dumb Blonde for Avril Lavigne really didn't get its flowers. I feel like, you know, Avril is also an icon and an incredible writer. And
she's also a really hard worker.
She really is. Yeah, she's great. I worked with her years and years ago. Like we've come together a few times over the years, and just nothing ever stuck. And I remember I came in that day, and she came in pissed. Like she had just gotten in a fight with her boyfriend, and this is years ago. So like, don't even try to guess who it is, y'all. Anyway, she came in and she was just like, you know what? I am not a dumb blonde. And she was just like, I got something to say about it. And so we wrote Dumb Blonde, and it was really fun. It's another feminist anthem. And I don't know. Also, like when she gets on the mic, like, you know, we all know and love all of the Avril Lavigne songs, the classic ones. When she gets on the mic, her voice is so iconic. Like, I think we don't realize until you're like in the room and you're like, oh my God, that's Avril Lavigne. Wow. Like it was really magical. She's incredible.
Amazing. Then we also have Ava Max and then Lauren Gray. And that was more of like I'd say more of like the newer artists that are really taking over the internet. Do you find that it's different songwriting 10 years ago and like the things that you're doing are different 10 years ago versus today?
Not really. Because I just, like I said, I always kind of try to aim for classic and
Evergreen.
evergreen.
Yeah.
So I have my process, And look, there were many years where my style and my process was not in vogue, was not in style. And so there were many years where I didn't do shit. I didn't have any cuts because like what I was doing wasn't cool. And so but pop music goes in cycles.
Yeah.
Usually it's like 5-year cycles. And so I sort of had to sit it out and just be like, whatever, they'll be back. Like what I do will become popular again.
Seems like it is.
And it did. So, but I mean, there were a few years there where I was sweating and I was like, oh my God, like Drake took over. I don't know how to do that. I tried, but I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I sort of just had to wait for things to come back around, and they did. But Naked is the song that I did with Ava Max, and originally I had written that one for my own project.
Oh, wow.
There's another song. So I have Hot City, which is like the album from the vault, as I call it. And then in those years, in those like 5 years of feeling like nobody loved me and I didn't know what I was going to do, I kind of wrote like an existential crisis album that maybe will see the light of day someday. I don't know. But Naked was in there. And I wrote it and kind of forgot about it and was like, oh, it's cool. It's just this, whatever. It didn't fit with what I was trying to do. And then the producers, I guess, were working with the A&R at Ava's label, and somehow the demo got to him, and Ava loved it. And I was like, I had just like forgotten about it completely. And so I came in with Ava and my co-writer Eden, who is also an incredible indie artist, and we rewrote it together and made it kind of tailor fit for Ava. And of course, Circuit was producing, and he's incredible. And that was that.
Crazy.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I remember like it seems like it's become this trend of everyone to post how many streams they got throughout the year for Spotify Wrapped.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that.
But I remember I didn't see anyone higher than him. His by far was the most even today, which is insane.
Yeah, he's a genius. And just a lovely person.
Tell me about the producers you've worked with and how it's been to work with someone like Max Martin versus Benny Blanco versus Circuit.
I mean, Max is more than a producer, you know? Max is like kind of the godfather of modern pop.
Definitely.
And I still, when I ran into him, I'm like starstruck. I cannot believe how lucky and blessed I am to have learned from him. He was my mentor. And I remember like early on, I was still kind of figuring out the pop formula. Like I didn't quite understand that there was a formula. In my head, I was still coming from this like singer-songwriter land where it's just like, oh, like, you know, whatever feels good or whatever, you know. And he was like, I would write something and he'd be like, that's wrong. And I was like, there is no wrong. There's no wrong in art. And I remember like going and like crying in the bathroom and being like, why is it wrong? You're wrong. And then I realized he was absolutely right. And there is a right way and a wrong way to do a melody, depending on what you want it to do. But like if you want it to work on radio and you want it to connect with the biggest audience possible, there is a certain math and a certain formula that goes into pop music that works. And then there's plenty of songs that don't follow that formula that still work, but they will have one of those elements, whether it be like the lyric is the thing that hooks people or whatever. But he's my hero.
And then it seems like a lot of these ways that people make songs, they kind of freestyle the melody and then they add lyrics on top of it. Is that usually the process that when making a pop song?
It really depends on the artist. I mean, I think sometimes you run into trouble when you start with a melody because then you have to fit the lyric into the melody. Like you write a perfect melody and you're like, this is great. And then it's like words don't work on it.
Yeah.
So I like to generally go in with a title first. Having a title makes everything kind of fall into place easier. And then you already know what word and phonetics you're going to be working with the melody. So you can then sing that word in the best, most pleasing way possible. And everything kind of falls into place. Some artists will come in with just straight up poetry. And then we try to find the right melody that'll make it work. So it really goes all different ways. But I generally like to try to have a title first because it makes everything go a little smoother. You know what the vibe is going to be and what direction you're going to go.
Amazing. One of the people I'm going to be meeting on this interview run is Benny Blanco.
Oh, amazing.
Is there anything that I should ask him from you or anything that we should talk about?
I don't know. Gosh, it's been so long since I've seen him. Ask him about Teenage Dream and and how, I mean, really we have him to thank for being the cool meter, you know? Like he and maybe he remembers some of the stupid lyrics that we started out with. But yeah, just ask him about how hard we worked on Teenage Dream, because we worked on Teenage Dream.
Yeah, like rewritten like 5 to 7 times.
Yeah.
I saw that. That's crazy. What are your thoughts on TikTok and the impact it's had on the music industry?
I think TikTok is really exciting. It's a blessing and a curse. I think mainly a blessing because it's really getting fans engaged with music, which is not really something that we were able to do before. It was either like you hear it on the radio and then you stream it and then you just listen to it in your car or whatever. And now it's like, oh, you get to like create a video with it. You get to like come up with kind of a meme for it. You get to, do open verses. Like it's very collaborative and creative. And that's really exciting. It's just, it kind of made the music sort of 4-dimensional, where it's like, it's more than just listening. You're really getting to be a part of it and engage with it. And then like all of the discussions, all the action in the comments, like it's like Reddit in that way, where like a lot of the fun is really in the comments. So I don't know. I think it's an incredible, powerful tool for artists. And I think it's more fun for the fans than just like seeing a pretty picture on Instagram being like, cool story, bro. Like it's really interactive. But then it's also like so much work for the creator.
100%.
Yeah.
It's almost like every fan who like makes a video is in a sense kind of a radio station deciding like what people want to.
Well, it's also like, when it comes to radio, like sure, there's like requests, but I mean, for the most part, it costs $1 million to get on the radio. It costs money to get on the radio.
And that's how songwriters get paid mostly.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, streaming doesn't pay well. Even if you have, 1 billion streams. I mean, for the songwriters anyway, because I mean, the song is already split up into different writers. So if there's 4 or 5 writers on a song, then you're really only getting a fifth of that. And then you split that with your publisher, and then your manager gets a piece of this, and a lawyer gets a piece of that. And then all of a sudden you've got fractions of a penny.
That's crazy.
So streaming is rough, but radio actually pays. So getting a radio hit is really the goal. But there's only really like 10 to 20 people on the radio at a time. And that's like a very small window of opportunity. So TikTok is driving radio, which is why everyone is kind of like, okay, we got to make TikTok happen to make the streams happen, to make the radio happen. But even if something has 1 billion streams, it may not get on the radio, like because they may not be able to afford it, because TikTok is free marketing. So it's democratized music, but it's also like, it's just, it's so competitive, like, because literally anyone can throw their hat in the ring, which is great, but also makes it harder to break through the noise.
Something we're seeing a lot now is a lot of songwriters and artists starting to sell their catalogs. Mm-hmm. Why would a songwriter or an artist want to sell their catalog?
Money.
Yeah, for sure.
No, it's so basically, like I had all these hits 10 years ago, whatever, right? Every year, like there's still royalties that come, but every year it depreciates. Okay. So like if it's not hot on the radio still, then it's like you're not making as much money, but you can kind of cash out and sell your catalog and get like all of that future money at once, which is a lot of money. And when you get a big chunk of money, you can turn that into more money if you're smart and you know how to invest it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of people are selling their catalogs, and then you can make a new catalog and sell that in 10 years or whatever. But it's a tricky business. I don't know. I sold my catalog. I regret it. Especially because like the type of catalog that I have is all evergreen songs that are probably going to be played for the next 100 years. So I probably shouldn't have done that. But I was in a place where I was like, I think I probably should do this right now, because like here I am independent. I want to be able to fund my own stuff. I'm not making the same kind of royalties I was making. So like, whatever, let's go. And then it's hard to let go of it too, where it's just like, everyone's just like, oh, like you must be so rich. You've got all these songs on there. Like, no, no, that's not the case. So I don't know. I regret it personally, but I think it makes sense for a lot of people that have just like a lot of cuts, but that maybe aren't those kind of evergreen songs. That absolutely makes sense. Or if it's a number that you can't refuse, then I get that too, but I regret it.
So you've been through a lot as a songwriter, an artist, now making movies.
Uh-huh.
Incredible. Do you have any advice for anyone out there who wants to get in the entertainment industry?
Yeah, I'd say my biggest piece of advice to creatives and people that are trying to get into the industry, any industry really, is not to make success your higher power. Because it's really easy when you're making money and surviving off of your creativity and off of your own brand or your own face or your own intellectual property to equate success with your own self-worth. And that is just not accurate. And it's a scary place to be when you rely on other people's validation to survive. I mean, I can't control how people feel about my art. I can't control that. So it's important to me to enjoy the process and remember that like it's really about making art because you love art. And then like I think that translates to people can tell if you are enjoying what you're doing. But making success your higher power is, I think, a really dangerous place to be. And you got to just kind of take it more in stride and just love what you do.
Definitely. In the past, would you say that you were making success? the
Oh,
higher power?
absolutely. Because when I first got dropped from my first record deal, like
Yeah.
not understanding that it was the rite of passage, I wanted to die. I was done. And then, when it happened again, like even after I had my first few hits and I was like, uh-oh, it's been a minute. It's like, I guess I should just lay down and die. I should just jump off a building. And it's like, there's more to me than that. And there's more to everyone than that. Like you are not your success. That's not everything that matters. And also like if something's not working for you, if you have been trying and trying and trying, there's like other outlets that you can try, which is why like when I got fed up with music, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try making a movie. And that's like a whole new world for me where I can really enjoy having another outlet for my creativity. So there's more to life than success. Absolutely.
Tell me about the movie.
Oh, the movie, I made a movie, a little short film
Yeah.
called April Kills the Vibe. It is not available to the public because I don't know what I'm doing, but I put it in a bunch of film festivals during the pandemic. I wrote it, I directed it, I starred in it, I played 2 characters in it, I scored it, I edited it.
That's amazing.
I really just wanted to get my hands dirty and see what it's like from every angle of creating something like that. And I ended up winning 53 awards in the film festival circuit, which I was shocked by. And it was very rewarding. But so you're not supposed to release things publicly when you're in the film festival circuit because then there's no motivation for people to go to the film festivals and because they can just go online and watch it. But so I won all these awards and then I was like, I don't know what to do now. Like I don't have an agent. I don't have, I don't have anyone representing me in that world. I didn't know if I should just put it on YouTube or if I'm supposed to try to get it on Amazon Prime. Like, I don't know that world at all, which was kind of refreshing making a film because I was like, oh, I'm the new kid on the block again, which has been 20 years since I felt like that. So I was
Yeah.
like, best new filmmaker. I was like, oh shit, like I'm new, it was really rewarding. But I have no idea what I'm doing. I'd like to do more. But April Kills the Vibe is a very, very dark comedy that I wrote that's based in reality, sadly. It's about kind of the moment one of many moments that sort of got me sober when I decided to quit drinking. I was sexually assaulted and I had a very awkward conversation with a friend the next morning on the phone trying to piece together what happened and sort of the ripples that an event like that has throughout a friend group and how nobody really knows what to say or how to proceed. So it's very dark, but it's still funny and it's still engaging. And, I don't know, it was very cathartic and it was something that, I've been to lots of therapy about and whatever. I'm all good. It's fine. I've worked through it. But writing that was really interesting. But it brought up a lot for me. Because people never know what to say. And I've also been on the other end of that where I've had friends come to me and like tell me what, and then I say the wrong thing or I don't know. It's just, it's awkward. And so that's kind of that's exactly what the movie is about. And I purposefully didn't have it have anything to do with the music industry or music, because I wanted to prove that I could do something not related to kind of the ace up my sleeve, which is that I'm like an industry professional in the music world. And I was like, I just want to do something totally unrelated to that. So it is actually a part of a larger project that I want to do, which is like I've been working on screenwriting and stuff, a show that's about my experience being a recovering addict and a female in the cutthroat music industry. So yeah, that's the story of April Kills the Vibe.
Amazing. Sounds like it connected with a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess it did.
I'm glad that you were able to tell that story and honest with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it was weird doing like the small little press run that I did for that, just radio interviews or podcasts or whatever. It's hard to talk about that stuff and then be like, anyway, but I mean, it is what it is, you know? But I'm doing fine, everybody. It was a long time ago. It's all good. And I think it's just a story that probably other people can relate to. So hopefully I can help someone in the process.
So what did you make the value, like in the past, like the value was based on success.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say it is now?
My value, like where I get my value from, my self-worth.
What drives you?
What drives me?
Yeah.
I really just want to help people. I really want to make people feel seen and give them a place to escape to. And honestly, that is why, you know, the fans supporting me through this Hot City album is such a huge part of it, because my bond with them and feeling like I'm giving them something that they need, and they've shared their stories about how my songs about perseverance have helped them make it through whatever they're going through. That is incredibly rewarding for me. And look, my fan base is small but mighty. And I don't need to be number one for that to be satisfying for me. I'm just happy to have this experience with this group of people that really care. And of course I want to get new fans, but I'm also like, you know, I like having people interested that really want to be there, and like chasing new people down isn't for me anymore.
When I started this series, I thought that my mission with it was to shine a light on the people and stories behind music, movies, and media.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I realized that's not the case. It's actually to inspire every underdog to go for it. And
Amen.
You, Bonnie, this story of having these songs from 10 years ago, writing with all these people, and now being able to release it covers that mission so well. So I wanted to say thank you so much for being a part of this, allowing me to help share your story even further.
Thank you.
And we're going to all be listening.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much.
Super, super excited for that to come.
Thank
I want
you.
to say thank you so much for being part of this.
Oh,
So
thank you.
card for you.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to it for a long time.
Me
so
too. This has been a long time coming, so I'm glad we were able to make it happen.
Thank you.